Team Associated, also known as Associated Electronics, has been a cornerstone of the RC world for decades. Founded in the mid-1960s, the company first made its mark producing slot car parts before moving into radio-controlled racing in the 1970s. Their big breakthrough came in 1971 with the release of the RC1, one of the very first competition-level RC cars ever produced. From that point on, Associated built its reputation as a leader in high-performance RC racing vehicles. Through the years, legendary models like the RC10 off-road buggy released in 1984 solidified their status as innovators, setting the standards in design, engineering, and competition dominance. Team Associated cars have won countless world championships across multiple scales in just about every racing category. Today, the company continues to deliver precision-engineered machines across all sizes, from larger-scale 1/8 and 1/10 competition buggies down to micro-racing classes like we're looking at here, the RC28R Team Kit. Welcome back to the Shop Mini RC, everybody. I'm Ken, and today we are looking at the new Team Associated RC28 Team Kit. Some places you see it RC28, sometimes it's RC28R, but it is the Team Kit. There is another RC28 out there, a whole line of more almost toy grade stuff, but this is no toy. This thing is awesome, and we're going to dive deep into it. We're going to do a full build. I don't know how much I'm going to show, probably quite a bit because that's kind of our nature, but we're going to dive into this. We've got all the electronics and everything to build this guy out. We're going to build it out. We're going to run it. We're going to give you our feedback, maybe some tips and tricks along the way with the build, and yeah, we'll dive into this guy. I want to give a huge shout out to DirectRC for getting this thing out to us as quick as they could, and yeah, they always offer great pricing, great customer service, and yeah, they're just awesome to work with. So huge shout out to them for getting us this guy and the electronics and whatnot we're going to be using. And yeah, let's go ahead and see what's in this box. So I already did a video kind of covering this in general before it was released. So if you want a generalized video about this car and my thoughts on Team Associated entering the market, which I think is really good to bring in new people or people that hadn't historically raced 128 scale, definitely check that video out over here. I think it's awesome to see an established company like Team Associated come in and bring their thoughts and innovations and designs to this space. So here, I'll go ahead and let you guys check out the box. You can always pause. Some really good information here. And yeah, like I said, you can pause if you want to read it. I just give you the opportunity to see what's on each side of the box. All right. And let's go ahead and open it up. So inside we're going to find our awesome sticker sheet. There's also stuff from Reedy coming out for batteries and hopefully ESCs and motors and stuff. So definitely keep an eye out for that. That'll be awesome. And then everything is separated into easy to find bags. They're all numbered. Bag 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And then we have this here. And then there's the inside of the box. So this here has some double-sided tape for us. This is the manual. It's basically just a scan and use your phone type of manual. And that's kind of becoming the norm. One of the things that's nice is if there's errors in the manual, they can easily update it. And anybody who tries to do the build later on we'll have the updated version of the manual, so that's always nice. But there's the QR code if you want to scan that with your phone or screenshot it and then go to your images, and you can usually click on the image where a QR code is, click and hold, and it'll take you to the URL there. So pretty cool. And like I said, some double-sided tape for our electronics. And yeah, that's it. Pretty easy stuff here. One of the things that Team Associated is really good with is having their kits separated out into bags and kind of holding your hand through the building process. So their instructions are generally pretty good. We're going to go ahead and pull these up for ourselves, and we're going to get going. So like I said, I don't think I'm going to go super into detail with every step of the build. Maybe this will be a long video if so, and you guys will already know. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started here. So before we get started on the full build of the kit, I do want to show you kind of what else you're going to need. You are going to need all the electronics for this kit, as well as a body, tires, stuff like that. So first thing we're going to be running is the Hobby Wing Easy Run brushless combo, the Mini 28 combo. This is a great combo. We got 3500 kV, if I remember. Yeah, 3500 kV. So we're going to be running this in our Super Stock or 3500 GT. We use the 28 SRA rules. So that's going to be 2S LiPo, 3500 kV. I can't remember which pinion. I think it's a 10 tooth, maybe a 12 tooth pinion. I'll have to look that up. But we got all our options here, and then a Lexan body. So you are going to need a body, whether it's a Lexan body or a hard body, depending on what class. Motor ESC. Your servo, we're using the Torque 1003, TCM 1003. This is a fantastic servo. And then we're using some Reflex Racing pinions. You also are going to need tires. We're going to use probably PN fronts and Marca rears. We'll get there later. And then a 2S LiPo pack, and I've got a bunch of options. I have a full electronics video where we go over all the different kinds of electronics for this scale of racing, as well as batteries. So check that out over here if you're interested in the different batteries and ESCs and motors and receivers and servos, all the electronic stuff, all in that video. Then you're going to also need a transmitter and receiver. So anything with a micro receiver, again, I cover that in that video, as well as, you know, your batteries for that and your charger for your 2S. And then stuff for the build, you're going to need some CA glue or super glue, and then some thread lock. It's super important to thread lock anything that's going metal into metal. So we'll get there as well. As we're building, I'll talk about that. But any kind of, we use basically the blue thread lock, medium strength. Okay. And we were able to pick all this stuff up on DirectRC.com as well. So again, I'll put a link down in the description to most of this stuff, as well as the original kit. And we've got a coupon code. So if you're interested in snagging up some of this stuff or anything from DirectRC, use our coupon code down in the description, save you a couple bucks, and let DirectRC know that we sent you their way. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the actual build here. And yeah, let me get this out of here. Well, look at that. So first thing I'm opening is bag one, and I'm noticing I do not like that they don't give us actual little Ziploc baggies. I like to have those baggies to kind of hold parts in, or any extra parts, stuff like that. Also, I don't like having to just keep cutting all these bags open. I know, I'm lazy, but got to grab scissors, cut each bag. Not the end of the world, just, I don't know, maybe it saves them a good amount of money. And then I guess that's worth it. But I do wish maybe these guys were just cut open bags, and then each of the little bags were smaller Ziploc bags. Because if I'm in the middle of a build or something, I can always put stuff back in the bags and Ziploc it, and we don't have to worry about losing parts. But these guys are just kind of one and done. Not really a fan of that. That's okay. Not the end of the world. So right off the bat, I'm digging the chassis. It's a steel chassis. I like the finish. It feels nice and quality. This carbon fiber also seems good. So I'm digging that. All the parts, they feel like they're quality pieces. The plastic feels good. I mean, Team Associated's been around for quite a while, like I said in the intro. And yeah, they definitely know what they're doing when it comes to building kits. You know what? Maybe I shouldn't have pulled those off. I think these have different tensions. Are there little labels on these guys? There's not. Well, I guess you can see it. It's based on the slits here. So small slits, larger slits. One there, one there. So that's going to change how stiff these are. These are your side links. So I guess we can pull them all off. That's fine. But yeah, overall, I'm digging the quality. Just my first impressions here. Also comes with a servo horn. The servo horn is designed for a 20-tooth servo, so just keep that in mind. It's a 4mm diameter spline and 20 tooth. So keep that in mind. Also, I'm pretty sure the whole kit uses mostly like M2 hardware, which is going to be either 1.3mm or 0.05 inch. It's just going to kind of depend on the screw and the production run. And then we do have some tinies here, little itty bitties, and these are Phillips head screws. So keep that in mind. Those are pretty much just going to be for tightening up right here on your side link with the ball joint. And like I said, make sure you Loctite anything that's going metal into metal. Super important to do that. You don't want to forget. Otherwise, you're going to be driving your car and things are going to start falling apart on you. You're going to get loose screws everywhere, and it just becomes a pain in the butt. So definitely, I think we're the 050. That was kind of tight on the screw. But definitely make sure you, you're Loctiting everything and snug it down. Now, don't over tighten. These are small. I mean, especially on some of the smaller screws, just get them nice and snug. Let the Loctite do its job. That's a big reason to use thread lockers or Loctites, is that you don't have to over tighten because basically your thread lock will just keep everything. And over tightening, you definitely risk stripping things out. M2 screws aren't so bad, but when you start getting smaller screws, you got to be careful. You're also going to need a 0.9mm for these grub screws to get your ball ends onto the servo horn here. And we're going to use a tiny bit of thread lock here, but just make sure you don't get thread lock on the plastic, because thread lock will break down plastic. And you definitely don't want that. So don't overdo it, just the tiniest bit on there. And again, just make sure you're keeping things clean. Like don't glob it on there and then go down and squish it all over the plastic. Not ideal. We're going to just kind of thread it on, get it on there nice. Make sure we wipe off this side a little bit, make sure there's no thread lock on there, which there was, but we'll wipe it off and then we'll go ahead and thread it on the rest of the way. There we go. Make sure it's nice and snug and flush up against your servo horn. You should be good. And these little ball ends, they're not hexed in the end. Sometimes they're hexed. These ones have little flat sides though, so you can use some flush cuts or some small needle nose pliers and make sure you just kind of snug it up on those flat sides. Okay, I don't know if you can see it, it's super tiny, but they're flat right there on each side. And I like to use flush cuts, some of my dull, older flush cuts, get in there and just kind of snug it in. So just a simple tip when doing this step with the servo, I didn't tighten down any of these screws all the way yet. So you can see we've got left to right and forward to back, as well as these posts, the vertical posts here are also not completely tight on the servo. The order in which I would recommend tightening these is the servo posts, the vertical post first, holding your servo in. And again, we Loctited each one of these. You can tighten these guys up. Then go ahead and push your servo forward, or at least for now, I would push it forward. That's what they recommend in the instructions, having it forward. That'll change your acroman if you move it forward and back. But we'll go ahead and push it forward, and then we'll also align it centered here. And you can see right here this little post on the brace. That should be centered with your servo horn, essentially. We're not going to put our servo horn on yet, just because we haven't powered up the servo, and I don't want it to crank all the way to one side or the other. So the first time we power it up, we will center the servo, make sure everything's zeroed out, and then we'll put our servo horn on. Okay. But yeah, go ahead and get that nice and centered, and then you can tighten up your screws here once you know you are centered. And once those are tight, go ahead and hold it forward and tighten up your screws here. The reason you want to do that in that order is because if you tighten these outside screws first and kind of go backwards, you could introduce tweak into the chassis, just a tiniest bit, because your servo might not be sitting flush or whatever. And it could cause the whole servo, as you tighten it down here and here, to kind of tweak the chassis, even just the tiniest bit. Not probably a big deal, but if you're doing it, might as well do it right. So again, servo mounts first, then your left and right to center it, and then your kind of forward and reverse acroman adjustment. Okay? So for our torsion links, we have 3 different stiffnesses. We have a soft, a medium, and a hard. You can denote that here by the little slits. And then we also have some shims. Again, we're calling these torsion links or side links, but we have shims for these. You have a 0.5 millimeter as well as a 1 millimeter shim that will go underneath here, and that will raise the position there for high center pivot if you want it to be raised. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put these little tiny Phillips head screws in. We're going to use the mediums. That's what's recommended, at least for now. And then once you know your track and how the car drives and whatnot, you can play with that. But we're going to go ahead and put these in. We're going to leave them pretty loose, and then we'll tighten them up once they're on the actual ball joint. But leave them loose to start. Now, when we're doing these side links, definitely don't use Loctite. You're going into plastic, and don't tighten it all the way. So go ahead and just get it going, get it nice and snug. Maybe not even snug, less than snug. Like this should have some movement in there before you put your second screw in. You just want to make sure that they stay parallel and you don't kind of cause any tweak in them. So just go ahead and kind of bring them both in kind of equally, and then you can go ahead and tighten it down just a little. And again, I would just use like 2 fingers. It shouldn't take much. You don't want to over tighten. You don't want to strip them out. Just kind of 2 fingers. You're going into plastic, so you don't have to worry so much about it backing out. And I feel like how you tighten these might affect a little bit of your tweak, how your tweak is set up on the rear pod. So you want to make sure these are as parallel as possible. Okay, you can even see here, this looks like it's kind of coming in just a little bit. So we may want to back this out just a little tiny bit here, little tiny bit here, kind of hold it out just a little, and then go ahead and tighten her down. I don't know if that's going to matter, if it's going to help, but you definitely want to make sure they stay nice and parallel to the center of the chassis. And then this top ball stud for our center shock and damper is it's actually 1.5 millimeter. And we're going to thread lock that guy as well. Again, a lot of times when I'm putting these screws in, especially on stuff on the chassis, especially like these two screws here underneath, I get them down pseudo snug, get the other side in, get it pseudo snug, make sure everything feels a little loose, right? And then go ahead and start snugging it down. You don't want to just tighten one all the way and tighten the other all the way. Kind of do them a little at a time. Do a little bit here to get it snug, get it more snug, get it more snug until you're all the way down. Just, you want things to stay flat and even, and you don't want to introduce tweak into the chassis itself. And there we go. Our battery holder's all in. We did get our washers underneath our ball stud there, 2 1mm washers. You can adjust that based on the angle you want your rear spring or dampener in. We've got our O-ring for our battery holder. I did see when this first released some people criticizing this style of battery holder. Clearly they aren't very experienced in 1/28 scale, because this battery holder, you're just using 2 little side screws in a band, is plenty, and it works fantastic. I've never once had a battery fall out of my car using this style of battery holder, unless the rubber band broke or got way too loose. So yeah, no problem with that. And if you're really worried about it, you can get some larger head screws if you really care. But I've never had that issue. So yeah, everything's looking good here. Bag 1. Let's move on to bag 2, I guess. We have an extra screw and our shims and our other side dampers and our servo horn. And yeah, let's do bag 2. Bag 3, we've got our rear pivot block as well as the little bushings. There's 3 different bushings. There's well, I guess there's really only 2. You have your center, and then you have the adjustable here. It can be high or low. You can kind of see the arrow on there, and you can flip it so you can get your pivot ball low or high. We're going to use the mid. Make sure when you pop these guys off the sprue, you kind of clean up the little remnants of the sprue so that it sits nice and flush when we push it in here. And it'll just go right in and should fit perfect here. That's good, actually. Oh, we're on the wrong side. There you go. And then we can push this guy in and make it nice and flush. Okay. Then we'll get our screws and our carbon plate, and this will cover this up and hold that little bushing in, and we will use some Loctite on these holes as well. Now this kit does come with both Lexan body posts here, you can see that, as well as a hard body rear mount. If you're going to use the hard body, obviously you're going to replace this plate with your hard body plate. Just be aware that you may have to move your tabs. There's little side tabs that go on these hard bodies. This one's actually missing them, but you may need to move them 1 millimeter forward to get it to mount right. So just don't go gluing your body mounts on until you've built the car and you test fit things first. It's always important to test fit. And there's our full rear pivot block. We assemble that whole thing before we mount it onto here. Again, I like to mount it to the chassis last, tighten up these screws last just to prevent chassis tweak. And again, we Loctited everywhere, with the exception of the body posts because they're going into plastic. Again, we'll do each side, get them snug, and then once they're snug, we'll tighten them. Again, super quality kit so far. I'm really digging it. All the plastics feel good, the screws feel good, the carbon feels good, the aluminum feels good. Just the whole kit in general, just all the threadings have been real good. There's like no threadings I've had to struggle with. Everything just kind of screws right in and fits, even on the plastic. Like it feels like it's already threaded. These little holes, they felt threaded, went straight in, no problem. Okay, looking good. On to bag 3. So bag 3 is the rear pod here, and we're going to go ahead and put our bearings in. Now, they mentioned that if you feel any kind of play in your bearings or you're worried about there being play in your bearings, you can use just a tiny dot of CA glue on the outer race of the bearing. Just put a tiny dot in there, drop your bearing in, and it'll take out any sort of play that you have in that bearing. But ours seem to fit pretty snug for the most part. Like there's no real play in there, so I'm not too worried about it. And yeah, you do risk if you put too much CA glue on there, drop it in there, and that CA glue gets inside the bearing or on the face of the bearing. That'd be bad news. So just be super careful if you do that. And then we'll go ahead and put our rear axle housing on top of our pod here. It actually goes this way. And then you're going to adjust your rear height with these shims. So you can see here we've got these tiny shims, and the shims are going to drop into the screw and go like so, and then you can slide it in like that and then tighten it down. So you don't have to pull the whole thing apart. You'll basically, well, let me go ahead and do it for you. I do want to note there are 2 different size countersunk screws in here. You want to use the longer ones for this. And again, we're going to use just a tiny bit of Loctite, and we can drop this in and get our rear axle housing attached. And again, we screw it down. You don't have to tighten it though. because we're going to be fitting these shims in there. Now that's going to depend on the diameter of your rear tire. So if you're using a larger diameter, you're going to need to lower your ride height and vice versa. Where is the other countersunk screw? Somewhere in here. There it is. And so yeah, you're just gonna, we're probably gonna use the 0.5 millimeter shim to start, but I just want to show you how this works. Again, once your screws are in there, and then your button head screws are in the top, again, Loctite everything. You're able to make this loose. Okay, we can back this out. And then we can take our 0.5 millimeter or 1 millimeter shim, and you can drop it in there. So you can see, we'll go ahead and take this, slide it in, tuck it in like so, and then you can tighten it down nice and snug. Just like that. Okay. So super easy and fast for adjusting ride height. I dig that for sure. Looks like we might need to loosen this guy up a little bit. We did what we said we don't usually do. We tightened it all the way down, and really you shouldn't tighten all the screws down until basically the assembly is assembled. And then this guy's a little tight still. And boom, just like that. Super easy. I dig that. And I hate if you have to completely disassemble the rear axle to change your ride height. That's no fun, but this definitely makes it easy, so I like it. All right, we're going to start assembling the upper pod plate, put our 2 pivot balls in that are facing downward, and then our center pivot or center spring dampener will be here facing upward. Make sure you just do this in the right direction. It should line up with your pod here. So on your rear, should line up just like that on your rear. I really do kind of wish that these balls were using a 1.5. You could drop in there to hold it and tighten it like this versus using the little flat spots on the sides and having to use flush cuts or pliers. It just makes it so much easier than having to fiddle with these. This is the first time I've had to use these kind of balls, and it's just kind of annoying, but not the worst. It's much nicer when you can just grab a 1.5, grab a 1.3 or 0.50 and just snug it down like that. But these guys do not have the hex cut in there. Next time, Team Associated, next time. There's also 2 different length button heads. Make sure you're using the longer of the 2 to do the ball studs here. Otherwise, your shim, you have a little 1 millimeter blue shim in there. You're not gonna have enough threading, so they should be the 4 millimeter screws that go into these guys. Then we've got this guy all assembled. Get our pivot ball. Definitely use Loctite there. All of our countersunk screws, ball joints, and this guy will drop right on. Again, lining up here with our pivot ball. All right, there we go. Rear pod all assembled. 2 extra screws here. These should be 2 by 5 millimeter screws. Those are for the motor mount. They'll go right here. We're not putting the motor in yet. We'll do that later. And this guy should just drop right in here. And then you can go ahead and clip these guys down on there. Now, again, if they're too tight for some reason, you're going to notice, and you'll want to back this screw out. You also want to make sure this is nice and floppy. If it's not nice and floppy, there's some stuff we can do. Go ahead and get this guy on there. All right, we feel a little stiff. See how the pod just sits up? It's not just dropping down naturally. I feel like that means it's a little too stiff. And so what we can do is we can take some needle nose pliers, and you got to be careful doing this, but we always do this on different links, ball links and whatnot. And you can very gently just kind of squeeze these links. Okay, just a little bit of kind of squeezing. Do each side. What you're trying to do is you're trying to compress the plastic around the ball joint. Just make sure you don't slip off or anything. We're holding it nice and tight. We're making sure that we stay on it. You don't want to like squeeze and slip off and mar it up or break it because you slipped off, right? So just keep it nice and snug and you're just kind of pulsing on it. And it should get looser and looser until eventually this will just want to drop. See that? A little better there. Okay, you just want to make sure that's nice and loose. That way you don't have to adjust things after breaking in. I mean, you're probably going to want to adjust it anyway, but that's going to make sure that you're starting off loose and you don't have any weird things happening on your first initial test drives. And then from there, you can tighten up these screws on the sides to kind of snug up that pivot ball if you need to. It's looking much better. Okay. We might go a little bit more. I feel like this, it's hard to tell which side it's on. Usually when the links are full loose links, you can just drop this out and test each ball. But because these are mounted, it's hard to kind of test. So we'll just try to give this guy a little bit looser. Make this guy just a little bit looser. And you don't want to overdo it. You just want to make sure it's not sticky. That's much better. You don't want it loose enough to where it'd pop off, that's for sure. But just a little bit. And again, it's better to go less and do it multiple times than it is just to go in there and crank on it, and then it's like too loose and you've ruined the ball joint there. Okay, feels good. Yeah, there you go. You know, not holding it totally flat, but you get the point. If I hold it flat, there you go. Nice. Alrighty, let's move on. Bag number 4. So we're on to bag number 4. Here's all the stuff from bag 4, and we're going to start with this front bulkhead and lower suspension arm. I really like how clean these twist off. Like, you don't really have to clean them up too much at all, if at all. So that's super nice. And you don't have a bunch of sprue stuff on there, so that's cool. We're going to go ahead and put our bulkhead and pivot balls into our lower arm here. And when you do this, you just want to make sure that these balls move nice and free. If they're not moving nice and free, you can use that strategy where you kind of pinch, but you probably won't need to. These feel like they're well spaced, and you want to come in through the top. There's a smaller side and a more open side. Definitely come in through the more open side, which should be the top here. And once it's in there, it looks like it moves nice and free, so that's good for sure. All right, let me get this onto the chassis. Now you are going to use these longer screws, the M2x6. You are going through plastic here, so I probably wouldn't go through and put any Loctite on here. You could, but if you're gonna, just make sure it gets into the threading and you're not really getting a bunch of Loctite all over the plastic here. I guess you could try to drop your screws through the plastic and then add some Loctite to the end, but then you'll be double threading it, and you really don't want that. So really, it should hold fine because you're threading through pretty tightly through the plastic here, which is going to act like its own form of Loctite. So I wouldn't use Loctite here. Next up is going to be our knuckles here, and just know that this is the top, so the arm is towards the top side, and just know that you, on your kingpins, do have a top and bottom as well. There's a long side and a short side. If you need to use calipers, you can do it, but you should pretty easily be able to visibly see. This is our short side, this is our long side. The short side goes down, so if we've got our steering arm, steering knuckle, short side should go down, like so. And then you're going to use your grub screw into here to kind of key into that notch. Okay, so go ahead and get our grub screw, 0.9 driver. We'll go ahead and run the grub screw in. Again, you're just going to want to get that keyed lined up. And so I would just slowly screw it in until you can kind of feel where that notch is. And then once you know you're nice and lined up, you can go ahead and get your grub screw straight in there. Oh, what's happening? Did not line up there. Here we go. You might have to rotate the kingpin just a little bit to make sure. There we go. Well, it's still kind of rotating through. What is happening there? Hold it down. It's like grabbing the kingpin and trying to pull it through. Again, you just want to make sure. All right, we should be good there. Just don't want the kingpin coming out. Simple as that. All right, next we'll put in our ball stud with our 0.5 millimeter spacer. There is a 1 millimeter spacer as well. Either way, you can see it there. That's going to go underneath on the bottom on our lower A-arm there. And then our axle shafts here. I know there's going to be some awesome aftermarket stuff coming. I know that MWX has some O-ring axle shafts here, basically that keep the bearings nice and snug on there, remove any kind of play. We'll probably look at getting something like that soon. I would recommend hand threading this in to get it as straight as possible. And then once you're hand threaded as much as you can use a 4.5 millimeter driver to go ahead and finish it off, because it does get pretty tight pretty quickly. You just want to make sure you're going in straight. You don't want your axle shafts being crooked. That would be bad. And then again, just snug it up. Don't overdo it. You're going into plastic. You don't want to strip it out. Okay. Looking good. And now we'll look at the upper arms. That's these guys here. You come with 4 different upper arms. These are going to adjust your caster and your camber. The number on the right is for caster. The number on the left is for camber. You can see little arrows kind of denoting that. Again, camber and then caster, forward and back. We're going to go ahead and use the 2-2. This is a 3-2. These are millimeters. So 2 millimeter, 2 millimeter, 2-4, and 3-4. But we're going to go ahead and use a 2-2 for now. We can swap it around very easily. That's one of the cool things about this kit. It's just super easy to adjust that stuff. All you have to do is pop out your little pivot balls, and heck, if you had extra sets of pivot balls, you could just preload all your pivot balls and just drop them off with 4 screws, swap them out, have no problem there. Super simple. But this just drops in, and then you're going to put your springs on top, like so, and then this is going to drop on top with our pivot ball once we get that in there. Let's go ahead and do that. And these are going to be the same. You're going to have a more open side, which is going to be the bottom. You can drop your pivot ball in through the bottom. If you need to, you can use a set of pliers. Just don't mar things up. It shouldn't be hard. You can push it in by hand, but it's a little tight. And again, you just want to make sure that they're nice and loose. As long as they're nice and loose in there, you're good. That's exactly what we want. All right, so 1 knuckle in, other knuckle in, spring on top, easy peasy, and then we can drop this upper brace or A-arm or however you want to look at it right there, and right there, maybe, there we go, and drop that guy right on top, just like so. And then our 4 screws. Dang it, we got ahead of ourselves. We totally forgot to put our 1 millimeter spacers in. So let's pop these out. And again, on these, I would not put Loctite just because, again, you're going through plastic. But yes, don't forget your 1 millimeter spacers here. Go ahead and pop this off, drop this out. See if we can get that on there. And there we go. And then we'll do this side. Try and do it in front of the camera. Honestly, it's just easiest to just put it flat on the table and then get your springs, spacers, all that, and then just drop it on. Super simple. And it is a very quick and easy way to get all the different casters and cambers that you might need or might want without having to try to make sure that it's equal on both sides and adjust and whatnot. You just drop it on and you're good. Very simple system. I dig it. So my first impressions on this front end setup is I like how simple it is, but I do wish there was a little less play in there. There's quite a bit of side-to-side play in that ball joint, both top and bottom. You can kind of see how much it moves there. And I mean, I get it. There's only so much you can do with tolerances on these specific parts. It's definitely a hard thing to deal with there, because if it's too much, you'll get binding. If it's too little, you'll get binding, and you'll get slop. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm sure we're gonna have to grease this up in here. It's interesting how open and loose the springs kind of sit. But once you're sitting, right, once it's actually got the weight of the car on there, it should be okay. But there's no like actual spring cup. It just kind of floats in there, which I don't know. I'm not really the biggest fan of that. I do kind of wish it had more of a cup or something just to keep the spring from flopping around and getting, like, if I'm gonna grease this up, I guess you grease it up from here. I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to criticize too much. We haven't driven the car yet, but I just wish there's a little less side-to-side slop there, because there's quite a bit of back and forth, like rotational and side-to-side. Just those ball joints. Look at that. That's a lot. But should be okay, though. A lot of times, a lot of people like really loose front ends. They kind of auto-track themselves, so maybe that's kind of their logic here. And again, it keeps it super simple for newer people or people that just don't want high-maintenance cars, so I can appreciate the sacrifices made for that. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our links, rod ends and turnbuckles. These guys here. These are directional, so they're left thread. So you're going to want to make sure that this little notch, see there's a little notch here, that little groove is indicating the direction of the threading. So you're going to want that on the left side of the car. And that way you can always, both turnbuckles will turn, tighten and loosen in the same direction. So make sure you set that up properly. And then we're also going to test our rod ends on our ball joints to make sure they're nice and loose. And if they're not nice and loose, again, use some pliers to slightly pinch and loosen them up. So on these guys, you're going to want it 6 millimeters apart from the bottom of the link ends. So right there. It's basically a 0.5 millimeter between the link end and the turnbuckle. And you can actually use, if you don't have some calipers, which I highly recommend you get some, but you can use one of your spacers here. And those are 0.5 millimeter, and just drop it in there. And if it fits, that's about where you're going to want it, 0.5 millimeter on each side, and that'll get you your 6 millimeter spacing there. So just a little quick tip if you don't have calipers handy to use the existing part there. And it should be golden here. Go ahead and drop these guys on. Oh, well, we can't drop them on yet because we don't have our servo horn, but we're going to go ahead and get them onto our knuckles at least. Make sure they're nice and loose. Again, that's a little too tight, right? Should be swinging freely. So we'll go ahead and grab some pliers, and again, just gently compress, just gently, not much. Give it a little more here. And there we go. Now it's nice and loose. Okay, and we're going to do that for each side. And you always want to do this as you're building, because if you put the whole car together and then you have some weird binding, you don't know where that binding is coming from. You've got to go through and check every ball joint again. So just do it as you're building it. Makes sense. And then you know for a fact that every ball joint is nice and loose. All right. And I should have pointed out, you want these measured at 90-degree angles, right? They should be perpendicular to each other, because once you've got your servo horn in, one is laying flat, one is vertical with your link ends. So just make sure you're measuring those out with them properly set up, not both flat. Kind of missed that one there. Man, guys, I totally messed up. There are spring cups. I did not realize it. So spring cups go right underneath here. That'll definitely help keep that spring from dropping around. We're going to go ahead and drop those guys in. Also, I wanted to point out that I really like that you have full access to the servo horn screw here. Boom. No problem. You can pull that out, swap your servo horn, pull it off, whatever, without having to disassemble your whole front bulkhead, which is super nice. Again, once we plug this guy in, we're going to have to pull our servo horn off and make sure it's all centered, but I'm just putting it together like this for now, just to have it together and keep everything in where it should be. Let me go ahead and put these spring cups on. That was my fault. Much better. Takes out some of that vertical slop, obviously. I mean, it was going to be sitting on the spring anyway, but that definitely feels better. We still have a lot of lateral slop here. I mean, it doesn't do anything to fix that in the ball joints, but yeah, at least the spring's not slapping around on there. So I appreciate that. I don't know how I missed that. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next step. That should be the front bumper. We'll go ahead and use the provided front bumper. We're going to be using Lexan. If you're using a hard body, then you'll need the hard body tab, little square tab that goes on there from the hard body kit you've got. So now we're on to bag 5 with our side dampers and our center shock, as well as our shock fluid or grease or whatever. That's kind of a mess in there, so I'll have to get that opened up and clean that up. But they're recommending 30K, so that's what this is 30K. There's also a lot of other different thickness damper greases, damper oils. Is a 35,000. There's 15,000. There's a whole bunch of different ones. So just kind of start with I would recommend starting with what they say, unless you already know kind of how you need dampening on your track, whether it's more bumpy or more smooth or high grip or low grip, whatever. You're going to know better if you're very familiar. But if you're new, just go with what they've got. And if you find you need more dampening, go with a thicker grease, less dampening, thinner grease. All right, let's go ahead and start getting these together. Now, I do want to point out, if you can't hand thread these in, it gets too tight and you can't get a good grip. I couldn't. Maybe I'm just a weakling. But I'd highly recommend shock pliers to hold that. They're aluminum. They're not going to mar this up. If you use regular like needle nose pliers, definitely make sure you've got some paper towel in there or something, just so that you don't get marred up. Because if you mar these up, you're going to get a lot of like sticking and binding and stuff. So definitely A good set of shock pliers is always a good thing. I use these all the time on things that you don't want to get damaged, but you need to get a good grip on. So just a little pointer there. Also, like all other link ends, we're going to want to make sure that these link ends are nice and loose when we drop them on, and everything is free on both sides of these shock tubes. Okay, these have little holes in them so that there's no suction. If you had no holes, you could have it basically just suck itself in. It'll stay stuck. So you definitely want freedom of movement there. So those little holes do that, and you have a little bit of grease come out of those when you fill this up. All right, but again, just make sure all your ball joints are loose, and you should be good. So we're gonna get these on, and then we're gonna work on our center shock. All right, we're nice and greased up in there. Put our cap on, spring collar, link end here. There we go. Little end cap here, which will be held in with a grub screw. So we are definitely going to want some Loctite on that little guy. All right, easy peasy. Awesome. And then our other link end. And then we're going to go ahead and make sure these are nice and loose on the ball joints as well. You do want to make sure you're fully compressed like this when you put that droop screw in, or the grub screw in. Okay. We're going to go ahead and just make sure we're nice and loose here. Again, it should just flop around. Like that. Let's check the other side. Nice. There we go. Looking good, looking good. All right, next we're going to be doing the diff, and this is a gear diff, and that's bag 6. So let's get all that stuff ready. So here we are with bag 6. Bag 6 is the gear diff. Now, this kit comes with a gear diff, but there are a lot of other differentials out there. Typically, a gear diff is good in a high bite situation where you've got lots of traction and kind of lower speed, lower power. So that's why a lot of the Kyosho brushed Mini-Zs, the box stocks, they're all gear diffs. It's good for lower power. As you start to increase in power, I think this will be good for like 2500, 3500. But as you start to get into the mod classes, non-spec classes, you're probably going to want something more than a gear diff. You're probably going to move more towards a ball diff or some sort of a hybrid. MWX Performance has a really interesting diff, and that's probably worth checking out. It's like a slipper diff of sorts, and that's been gaining a lot of popularity. So definitely check out the MWX Performance slipper diff if you're looking for something for more of a mod car or higher speed car, higher power car. But the gear diff should be fantastic, especially for newer people. I think this is a great setup, and so this will be awesome to run on this car. I think we're gonna be running a 3500, so it's gonna be kind of that super stock or 3500 GT class for the 28 SRA. And then I don't know, we'll see how that runs. If we feel like we need a slipper or a regular ball diff, we might swap it out. But I'd like to run it as it is, exactly out of the box. And again, I think this is good for newer people. It's more simple. You don't have to worry about adjusting it and tuning it and getting it to work right. It'll just work. You put it together, as long as you follow the instructions, put it together as the instructions say, and it'll just work right out the box. So we're gonna go ahead and start doing that. The first thing we have is our Planet gear cage. This guy here, actually, excuse me. It's aluminum, and we're gonna use some Udder Butter for our black grease. So this is a waterproof-ish grease, but it's a good all-around general grease, and we use it on tons of stuff for our smaller crawlers. It'll be the first time using it on anything on a Mini-Z, but it should work just fine, and it's going to give us, basically, you just want a little bit of adhesion to kind of help keep the assembly together as you build it. So this should be really good for that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start getting this planetary gear setup going, and little cross pins here. We need these too. All right. And then we've got our axle shaft here and the differential tension nut O-ring and the differential tension nut. So that'll just kind of screw onto here. And then we can drop on our sun gear, our inner sun gear, this guy. And it should just drop right onto that hex. Okay. Then we need spacer, washer, or shim. Then we will put our little planetary setup. Flat side, or no, wait. Yeah, flat side. Is that right? Yeah, flat side in. There we go. You've got the recessed side, these little milled out sides coming to the outside here. Then another shim. And then the sun gear outer. And then a bearing. Looking good, looking good. And then if you have to unscrew this, go ahead and unscrew it a little bit to drop it down so this whole thing can drop in so that you can get that groove. Actually, we'll drop it off quite a bit more. There we go. Now I can see that little groove in there, and you can throw your C-clip in, or your Jesus clip, because if it goes shooting across the room, oh Jesus. There we go. And then we can tighten this guy back down. It's fairly smooth. Back this off maybe a little. Let's smooth it up a little. Maybe we need a little more grease in there. Just gonna put a tiny bit on each side. All right. Seeming good, seeming good. And then our housing. So it looks like, let's see, which way does this go? Are these the same? Is it effectively the same? Yeah, they're the same on both sides, right? Yeah. All right. So this guy goes into the little recessed grooves. And make sure all your pins are all the way in for all your planetary gears. And this guy will sit nice and flush. And then you can put your housing. And other side on. What is this guy? What is this guy for? It must be for the outside of the drive shaft. So you want to get them poking through just enough to where you can get it to kind of drop into that hole on the spur gear. And then you're going to want to make sure you hold it nice and tight. Back your screw out just a tiny bit so that it drops even, because you don't want to double thread it, and then go ahead and start screwing it in. And actually, it looks like we're not getting the threading in there enough. So let's try again. Back it out. Hold it nice and snug. You could also try to thread your screw in and pre-thread it, essentially. All right, and then again, holding it nice and tight, get it going. Might need to back these guys out a little bit, actually, because they're kind of, yeah, and they go in. Let's try this one just a little bit. Okay, back this guy out a little. And then go ahead and hold it nice and tight and start threading her in. And you're going to want to push those through until they just barely start to show on this side so that you can do the same thing with this guy. Get it nice and lined up. And there we go. This is a little crunchy. It's going to need some breaking in for sure. I think maybe we're just a little tight there. Maybe that's what's going on. Just like a little quarter turn made a big difference. Still crunchy, but like I said, once it starts to break in, should be good. Next up is just putting our rear diff into the rear pod. Have a shim here, spacer. Then we'll throw this guy in. Another spacer. And then our hub. And yeah, this little plastic guy is a spacer you can use in place of a bearing for the rear on this outside piece. Since it doesn't really need a bearing, you can just use the spacer there. And then that guy goes here, and we're gonna use a little bit of Loctite on this. It should be a 1.5, yeah, 1.5. A little tiny bit of Loctite. I'm gonna hold this nice and snug. Now, typically, I try to put just the tiniest amount of space in here, and you can use, again, like a 0.5 millimeter spacer, something like that, just to kind of drop it in there and give yourself that tiny bit of space. Where'd it go? So let me back out my grub screw a little bit here. So put a little 0.5 millimeter spacer in there, make it nice and tight, tighten down our grub screw, and you can pull out that little spacer and you're gonna have just the tiniest bit of play in there. And actually 0.5 millimeter might be too much in hindsight. So we're gonna go ahead and loosen this guy up and just slide it in just the ever so slightly, and then snug it again. And we just want a tiny bit of play. You should just barely feel it click. You probably won't even be able to see it, but I can feel it click left and right. Just basically the play in the bearings, and then you're going to be nice and smooth with very little left and right play. Look at that. And that's what you want. And like I said, you're just going to barely feel a click. It's like movement in the bearings is all you should really feel. But there's a little tiny bit of play in there. See that? Look at that. Look at that. Sick. All right, we're getting to the end here. It's just the wheels, and we'll need some tires for it. And there's the body clips, wheel nuts, some O-rings to put on top of our body clips. We usually end up using just like fuel tubing to hold the body up where we want it to. And then we'll use a body clip on top. So I'll go get some fuel tubing to show that. The instruction manual does say that it comes with 11 millimeter plus 3 offset rears. And then the fronts, they also say are 11 millimeter zero offset, but they're not. These are 8.5s. So just be aware, 11 millimeters in the rear, 8.5s in the front. And then they do offer some factory team flange sets, yellow and white, some sidewall sets. So that's a cool option as well. There's a ton of different wheel options out there. Personally, we really like the Next Racing that have the flanges that screw on. They have every wheel option size that you could imagine, and then tons of flange diameters. And those are like at 0.1 millimeter differences, so you can really tune in exactly what diameter you want your outside disc to be. But yeah, so let me go ahead and get these, get these mounted up with some tires and get our body all kind of ready to go. Our tubing for, well, I don't know. We'll see. Let's figure it out. All right, so we're going to be using some KSM medium low profiles for the front, and then some Marca V1 RR 10s for the rear. Now again, everybody likes to use different tires for different things and whatever. And so this is what we're using. I think it's going to be a good baseline, basic starter spot for a 3500. Again, I'm sure people out there will have opinions, and that's fine. Put it down in the comments below. Let us know what tires you like to use. And we're using some Bob Smith Industries Maxicure. And then we're using these little tips to help us kind of get in there. You basically open these up and you can put your tip in there and then fill with glue as you go around. And people have their own techniques for gluing tires as well. So just things to keep in mind. There's a lot of different ways to skin the same cat. So this is just how we do it. We usually just kind of put a tire on like so. Then we'll get ourselves just kind of a little bit of starter glue going on here and kind of get a nice coat here on the inside, kind of a thinner coat, not too thick. I put too much in there, just enough to kind of get it nice and spread. And we'll go ahead and compress it down on. Remember, your tires have a little lip on them. You want to make sure that lip goes to the rear of the wheel. Okay, and then we will get rid of the excess and we'll let that guy dry. And then we move on to the next wheel, do the same thing for all of them, and then go back to the wheel we started with and do the front side. We'll fold it up. Like I said, we'll fold this guy up, and then we'll dip glue in there and then put it down. And there we go. We're all mounted up. We got our motor mounted in here. We got our 12-tooth pinion and ESC receiver. We did have to Dremel down our receiver. You can see we took off quite a bit there. Slide the case basically, and just a little bit off this side. So now we've got plenty of room to just drop it in there without having to completely decase it. But you can see we've got room now. So if we needed to move our servo back. However, this guy is super tight. And so moving our servo back is probably not going to happen. It maybe a little bit, but there's like no movement in there. You got to make sure that your leads coming out are super flush. Same on the back here. Try to get them as flush as possible. And then also we went ahead and put some shrink wrap here, or shrink tubing that you use on wires over the carbon, because remember, carbon fiber can conduct. So if you end up hitting your positive and negative there, you could end up shorting out, causing your battery some damage, catching fire, whatever. So make sure none of your leads, and I kind of worry about on the back here, but once we put some double-sided tape down on that chassis, it should raise this up just enough to where the leads aren't touching the carbon fiber for the wire motors. We should be good. Worst case, you could always come in and take off some of this, Dremel this in, just to take a little, like a 1/4 millimeter off, just the tiniest bit. Just make sure you're, wearing a mask or in a well ventilated, like with a vacuum to suck up the carbon fiber. You don't want to be breathing in carbon fiber. You could do the same up here as well. Just take off a little bit if you wanted to, just to give yourself a 1/4 here, a 1/4 there. It gives you a 1/2 millimeter, which gives you a lot more space. I'm not too worried about it though. Like I said, with that shrink tubing on there, and once this is sitting on the double-sided tape, we should be fine. We're not touching any of the wires on the carbon fiber, so should be golden there. Let me go ahead and get all this in. We're going to get this soldered up. We will also need our transponder, and then just need to mount the body. I think we're good to go. So we got our servo tape down on there, and it is, those solder bubbles, whatever, solder clumps are like right on the carbon there. So I'm not really a fan of that. I think I'm going to take this and I'm just going to Dremel off just a little bit on this back battery tray. That's not nearly as important as the steering, so I can take a little off there and just at least give it a little bit of space. That is super tight. Again, just a 1/2 millimeter additive would have been perfect for this. So not only did I Dremel this in just a little bit, quite a bit actually, if you compare it to the other side. Here, look. You can see how much we went in. It's kind of hard to tell, but pretty decent amount there. Took it in. Still kind of feeling like not the most comfortable, even with it there. Just kind of, those wires are just literally at the exact spot. And if these are folded down over the battery, who knows? I'm just going to take a little bit of extra caution. You probably don't have to worry about it, but I just don't want a car catching on fire. I'm going to use some conformal coating. I'm literally just going to put a little bit on here. And I'm probably going to put just a tiny bit of conformal coating on the back of this board here. Just a little thin layer, and that'll kind of help protect it from each other. All right, ladies and gents, we are all set up. Got our transponder in, ESC receiver. We're using this Genzace 400. This battery's a little thick, so I opted to take this out because it was actually hitting on the center shock here, and just use some of the bands that we usually use, which are a thinner band. It also holds better onto the screws here, so this was not going to hold very well just because it's such a big, thick band. It also wasn't very tight, I noticed. So yeah, you might have to swap out bands. I know there's some people out there making different kind of battery holders and whatnot. This one's fine. I think it works totally fine. You just have to have a nice, thin, tight band, and you'll be golden there. Now we don't rub on our center shock, and it's not going anywhere. It's holding in there really good. We're using a Dumbo transmitter. This Dumbo transmitter is awesome for the price. The DDF 350 holds like 10 models. Receivers are like $15. It's a fantastic, fantastic transmitter. I have a full deep dive on this guy. And yeah, definitely worth checking out if you're looking for a new transmitter, especially a micro-sized transmitter. And they've got big stuff too. Tons of channels on here. It's all programmable, and you can swap and assign all the different buttons to all the different channels. And there's gyros built into some of the receivers and whatnot. You don't want to use that in this because gyros aren't allowed in racing, but yeah, seems good. It's going to be real good here. I noticed the rear tire here, rear wheel. It's not my tire mounting, it's the wheel. It's got a little bit of wobble to it. I kind of wish they gave us 2 grub screws. If you notice, there's only 1 grub screw. There's none there and only 1 there. I always feel like that causes the hub to kind of cant a little bit, which is why I think we've got a little bit of a wobble going on here. Just a little bit. This one is our tire. That tire's a little messed up, so it looks a little wobbly. The wheel's solid on this side, though. You can see the wheel isn't moving at all. It's pretty straight. But this side, the wheel's got a little bit of wobble and vibration. Anyway, one of the things that the X-Bility which is a different platform, but the X-Bility addresses that with a totally different rear wheel hub setup. It uses like 3 points of connection. It's actually really awesome, and it makes the rear end like buttery smooth, like no vibration. It just, everything is perfectly centered around that axle. It's awesome. Anyway, this guy looks like it's going to be good. Here's those tubes I was talking about to hold our body. We just use those, slide them up against the body, make it nice and tight, and then our body pins in the top. And yeah, it seems like it's going to be good. I've been kind of messing with the diff here a little bit. Definitely feels a little more smooth after you just run it just a little bit. I'm sure after a couple actual runs on the track, we'll be pretty good. And obviously we can tighten it up and loosen it based on how we need it to feel when we're driving. Everything seems good though. Definitely excited to run this guy. We need to get this body mounted. So we're actually going to be using this X-Bility body, the Nova GT, and should work pretty good actually. Let's see here. Yeah, this guy looks like it'll mount up perfect. Even our little dimples here on the rear look like they might be perfect for it. Front's not so much. We're using it. Maybe we should use the bumper that came with this body. I think we got an extra bumper here. Hold on. No, we didn't. That was for the other body. That's okay. We could use this bumper. Doesn't tuck quite into the body. There's a little bit of space there, but that's okay. Should work really well though. Yeah, the actual bumper for it will tuck right into the body. But we should be okay here, I think. Maybe once it starts to slide, let's see. Hold on, actually. Flip her this way. Oh yeah, that bumper will be real close, actually, once we get it in there. All right, let me get this mounted. Then we got to get it painted. I don't know if that'll be for this video. Maybe we'll just run it with a clear body until we get it painted. All right, let's go. Now we just need to get it painted. That's going to work well. Again, we're not trimmed out properly yet, obviously. We'll get there, but I want to get it painted first. And yeah, it seems like it'll work. Seems good. Transponder right through the window. Let's go. Marcus is going to run the car for the first time. I'm going to film. And then we got it tuned up a little bit, but nothing too crazy. But
I can't see right now.
You want to say what?
I couldn't see right.
No, before that though, you can say we just need to
the dual rate if we can figure out. How to
we'll adjust the dual rate. Right now we've got endpoint. We're using endpoints and our throttle or our steering curve. It's looking pretty good already. It's again 3,500.
What's that tuning you got here?
It's 12 tooth for 35, right? So 12 tooth. Anyway, guys, let's do some music video maybe? All right.
Yeah. Small scale, but it hits so mean. RC28R rolling clean on the scene. Russia's beast, 3,500 on deck. 2S live pole, got the drive time in check. Tiny rig, but it rips for sure. Hobby wind power, talk controller corner. Fast laps, tight tracks, body so slick. 28 size, but the punch hits quick. Team Associated, the kit, the crown. Mini car beast, shut the whole track down. Custom build, tune right. Grip tight, 128 scale, but it runs just right. From the pit to the track, all heat, no fake. Every corner carved sharp, every position we take. Fast laps, tight tracks, body so slick. 28 size, but the punch hits quick. Team Associated, the kit, the crown. Mini car beast, shut the whole track down. So watch close when AE comes through. RC28R, yeah, it's breaking the rules. Brushless hard, in a body this small. Mini size, but it's standing tall.
All right.
We're going to get going in about 2 minutes. Looking for Jalen, Eric, Al.
He's loving it.
Jude. Jalen, Eric, Al.
He's loving it.
And Jude. You guys are up here in about 2 minutes.
We're gonna start racing, sir.
All right, here.
How are you feeling?
I love it. I want it.
You want it?
Yeah.
Well, good thing they're well priced.
That's what I'm saying. Honestly, for $249, come on. And it's associated. I can get parts easily.
Yep.
And I have the benefit of Brent being here.
Right. Brent's a team driver, right?
His son is
Or
like
son.
designs cars for Team Associated. The B7, he was
Oh, the
heavily
off-road
involved-
buggies?
He was heavily involved in the designing and implementation of that kit.
Maybe we'll go talk to Brent for a second.
You should include that in your video. Thank you, Ken.
Yep,
Awesome car, guys.
Yeah, yes,
All right, Brent. So I know your son works with Associated. You've been racing Mini Z for a while. Why don't you tell me what this car is about, what it means to you, what you think is good, bad, ugly?
So yeah, the first time I put the car on the track was during the PNWC warm-up race here, what, 4 weeks ago. And I was immediately impressed with how consistent the car was from run to run to run. Every time I put the car on the track, it felt the same.
That's always a good thing, especially for newer people.
Yeah, that's the big thing, is the car doesn't do like weird random things every once in a while, which I think might be a problem with side spring cars. So the torsion bars, I think, are making the car that much easier to drive. Of course, the car is very easy to work on. You know, it comes with all the parts you need to do modifications. So there's 4 front end parts, 2-degree camber, 3 caster, 2 camber, 4 caster, 3 degrees of camber, and then caster along with those.
And they're easy. It's just the 4 screws. You just pop it out.
4 screws, you lift it off. The springs are easy to deal with. You just lift this off. You can pull the springs off. You can change the ride height by putting a spacer under the bottom or underneath the spring perch. That changes the ride height of the car. So it's got all the adjustability of every other car on the market. It's just the front end doesn't have camber gain. So a double A-arm front end car will have a camber gain effect when the car rolls into the corner, where a kingpin car doesn't have that.
Okay.
So you might lose a little bit of steering on mid-exit of the corner. But I think because this car has so much camber in it, you kind of get some of that back.
And this style front end is very popular in 12 scale, right?
Yeah, pretty much every 12 scale on the market nowadays is a straight kingpin front end. Like
They don't use double A-arms.
The A12, the CRC car, X-Ray, everything is basically a kingpin car.
Okay.
They went away from the double A-arm or fixed lower arm, movable upper arm, which still gave you a camber gain effect and stuff. So it's hard to say if it's a big effect. I haven't really tested my reflex car against this one because I took parts out, the electronics and stuff out of it, unfortunately, to put in this car. But I'm extremely happy with this car so far.
What's your biggest tip for somebody getting their first one? Maybe they're brand new. Maybe this is their first build after a box stock Kyosho. Like, what tip would you give them as far as maybe building the car? Not necessarily setup, but like, what should they focus on?
So when I built the car, the biggest thing for me was like the ball ends. All the little ball ends.
Oh, yep.
Were too tight.
I mentioned that. Yep, I mentioned that. And you got to squeeze them out.
So you just take a pair of pliers. You get a pair of pliers and you squeeze them lightly in a couple positions, and you'll feel them move loosely.
Yep.
The big thing is you want to feel them, move back and forth fairly loosely. Like
everything should kind of swing when you hang it from the ball.
Yeah, you don't want anything bound up. So you want to test your front links here without the servo there.
Yep.
They should flop and be smooth.
Yeah, we talked about that for sure.
Biggest thing with Mini Z, if you've never done it before, is tires.
Oh,
Tires make or break a Mini Z.
100%.
So just to kind of start out, the best thing's probably a PN medium front. Doesn't matter the KS, MKS, whatever.
Sure.
Just medium front tires, and then like a Marca rear 10, 15,
That's awesome.
20.
That's exactly what we use and exactly what we said. So I'm glad we're on point there.
So for slower classes, you can use double-sided tape and tape them on. But when you start getting into super stock and mod, you have to super glue the tire to the rim.
Yep.
So you cannot use Delrin rims. Don't ever buy Delrin
because the glue doesn't
rims,
stick.
because you can't. Yeah, super glue doesn't.
And so these wheels, the stock wheels that come with it, they are.
This is actually the stock wheel. I have a reflex on.
Yeah. But the stock wheels that come with it, those are acetone safe, right?
Yes, they
so
are.
we can dip them in acetone to put new tires
Correct.
on if we glue it. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually use my tire truer to sand it off.
That's fair.
I don't
That's
acetone it, but there's multiple ways.
Yeah. That's actually not. I've never thought about just truing it down to the plastic and then.
Yeah, so I try to peel it off as much as I can, then I just put on the truer and use it as a lathe.
That's a good tip. I never thought about that.
I take it off that way.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your insight into the car. Anything else you want to say about it?
For the money, you can't beat the car. It's $260.
See what I've been saying, yeah.
And like I said, the car was great right out of the box. I've done setup stuff to it, but I kind of like the soft side links on the car versus the medium or the hard.
Sure.
That's just my feeling, at least for mod. I've only ran it in mod. So
are you running 30K in all your dampers, or?
So I'm running the 30K diff lube in the side tubes, but I'm running 45K Kyosho or.
But the softer stuff here, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, 30K here, 45K in the center shock because the gap between the piston and the sidewall is a little bigger than some other shocks. So you need something a little heavier.
That makes sense.
And
Maybe
then
we change it
in the front, just on the top ball here, not on the bottom, I run 15K Kyosho. I ran 30. The grip's like super high and crazy. I'll run 30, but it was a little too much when I played with the car, so I dropped down to 15K and I went faster. So for greases, those are the big things. The ball diff, you just kind of need to break it in. You'll see my ball diff is so loose, I can actually just sit here and spin it.
Yeah, when I saw that the first time, I was like, that's absolutely insane. It just spins and
You don't need this to be stiff at all in Mini Z because these cars actually suffer from rear grip. They don't have enough in the car. If you wanted it to rotate a lot harder, you could put grease in there, you could tighten it up, but if you tighten it up, the gears are going to bind up a little bit more. It's just not going to feel good on the track.
So you want it very loose.
You want it loose, and the car feels great. It's easy to drive. Even in mod, I'm not having a lot of issues with it.
And so you're running this guy in mod, and you love it. You love it in mod.
Oh, absolutely. Adore it.
So no question that it can hang in mod. Because I've been kind of touting it as a great car for somebody new. A lot of people know the name. It says easy build, quality parts. Seems like a no-brainer for somebody trying to get into this style of car. But I worry that it might suffer in higher classes because it's got a little bit less tunability in some ways. And
other like the front end is a little bit more generic. You don't, like I said, you don't have that camber gain effect that you can get with a double A-arm car.
But that could be a
the
bonus.
Roll center change that happens with a double A-arm car. This is all fixed geometry. So
just reliable then.
But I mean, I was out here running on the PWMC track, and I got to about 2/10 off of Maldonado, who's your 3-time world champion.
Right. Yeah, he's no joke.
When he was here. So for me, being 2/10 off of him, I thought that was pretty good. I'm not the greatest driver in the world. So to be 2/10 on average off, I thought was really good for this car.
Awesome. Well, that's good to hear. That's super promising.
Yeah, in the hands of the right driver, I think this car could be just as competitive.
Anything you change or like to see from an upgrade standpoint?
Well, they need to make it. They need to push all this stuff forward. You can put wide batteries in. Right now, it only takes the thinner, narrower batteries. You can't
also, when we were putting the Mini 28 in there, we barely had enough room. We had to trim a little bit off the carbon fiber to get it to not have the wires touch.
Yeah, so the hobby wing speed control is a little tight in here. So somehow this front brace needs to change a little bit or push forward a little more.
Yeah.
So that you can fit a little longer speed.
Yeah, we felt the same thing. So you're not alone in that.
In there, but.
Awesome.
I mean, other than putting a double A front end on the car,
not much to do to it.
There's not much to do, in my opinion.
Right.
You know, just little teeny things here and there.
Well, that's good to hear. Awesome. Well, I appreciate your insight, and you're going to be at the big race, right?
I'm the announcer.
There we go. So you will be
the
there.
Race director. I'm not racing. I will be there to play around when the track is open and we're not racing. But yeah.
Well, then we will see you there. Thanks again.
All right. Thanks.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gents. Awesome car. I mean, if you're looking to get into Mini Z or you're a veteran, I highly recommend checking it out. I mean, the price point, you can't complain, and it handles great. Handles fantastic. We've ran it a couple of our heats here, and it's fun. It's a great car. Just got to get it tuned in a little bit. And like Brent said, there's not a lot you have to do to it to make it really good. So huge shout out to DirectRC for sending this guy out, all the electronics, everything. DirectRC's been fantastic to work with. They've got great customer service, super fast shipping times. They're right in Indiana, so you can, they're center of the country. You can get your stuff shipped anywhere if you're in the US. So fantastic. Again, huge shout out to them. Thanks again. And we look forward to working with them more in the future. And then huge shout out to all you guys who are channel members and subscribers. All of our channel members here, they are a huge benefit to our channel, and they're like family to us. We appreciate them all. We love to see you guys in the live streams. We love to see you guys in the Discord, and I love it when you guys reach out to me asking questions or giving comments and stuff like that. Love to see everybody in the comments. Thank you guys for all commenting. I always try to reply to all comments. And so if you're not a subscriber, not a channel member, consider becoming a channel member or at least a subscriber. It's just a click for you. It means the world to me, and I appreciate it. So yeah, make sure you hit that subscribe notification bell, like and share, and then comment down below, guys. Why don't we put Get Associated in the chat if you made it all the way to the end. Get Associated. And we'll get yourself a Team Associated 128 scale on-road. If you've got a local place that runs them, 100% recommend it. It's my favorite part of the hobby for sure. I do it every week, and I love it. Absolutely love it. Anyway, guys, hopefully we'll see you at the PN World Cup, World Champs, whatever it is, and it's here in Lakewood, Colorado, and that's awesome to see, and we're a sponsor, so we're excited to be there. We're going to bring you coverage if you can't make it, and if you can, we'll see you there. Until next time, guys, get out there, build something awesome, build a car, build a course, build a community, all those things keep the hobby alive, and then smash it, crash it, bash it, but don't break the expensive parts. Peace.